Dr. Uma, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine now. I'm fine now. Thank you so much. Earlier I
Okay.
was not fine, but now I'm fine.
Can we begin now?
Yeah. Sure. You want me to begin right now?
First of all, I would like to request our CEO, Abhilasha Raimaji, to recite the biography or some brief bio of Dr. Uma Pandey.
Welcome to Polygon College, Uma Shankar sir. First, I would like to give a short introduction and then we can start with your presentation. And at the end, we can have some question and answers from our participants, from our students here. So first of all, a warm welcome to you. Dr. Uma Shankar Pandey is Associate Professor and Head Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Surendranath College for Women, University of Calcutta, India since September 2002. He completed his Master's and Ph.D. in Journalism and Mass Communication from the University of Calcutta. He completed his graduation with honors in physics from University of Calcutta in 1996. He is the PhD supervisor at Department of Journalism and Mass Communication in University of Calcutta. He qualified for NET, JRF, and L in Mass Communication in December 1999. He is the first India ambassador of the International Association for Media and Communication Research, the preeminent global association for media and communication research. He completed the study of United States Institute program organized by the United States Department of State, conducted at the Ohio University, US in July-August 2015. Dr. Pandey is a member of Board of Studies at number of Indian universities. He has presented papers at a number of international conferences at Minneapolis, Madrid, San Francisco, San Juan, Seattle, Lancaster, London, Dublin, Durban, Istanbul, Shanghai, and many other countries. He was awarded the Best Media Educator of India Award by the Business World in November 2018. He has conducted training programs and workshops for corporate communicators, teachers, journalists, and students at different parts of the country on the themes including data journalism, conversational intelligence, big data, media literacy, social media analytics, Creative Commons, journalist, job satisfaction, framing of election news, etc. So he has a wide range of experience, and I hope that our students will benefit from today's session. So with this, I would like to welcome you, and the stage is all yours. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhilasha ma'am, for this wonderful introduction. And it's a pleasure meeting friends and students and colleagues from Kathmandu, Nepal. I've been to your country very often, and it's one of my favorite places. And I can speak a few lines of Nepalese also, but today I will not dare to do that because we are in a formal program. And Abhiral is a very old friend, and this was planned earlier. But then I got stuck, and I was in hospital for some time, and I couldn't come earlier. But I remember meeting Abhiral in Minnesota. It was, I guess, a few years ago, where he was also there for a SUSI program, and yes, and since then we have been interacting, and I'm sure we would love to see you here in Calcutta at some point of time, and I would love to come down to Nepal whenever there's an opportunity. So just let me know whether you can see the screen so that I can.
It's fine.
The slide is visible. So when we were planning out something for our students, I thought that why not discuss something about something which is so vital and so important for survey research. And as we all know, survey research is such an important part of any program. And of course, this is there in journalism as well. So as I go along, if you have questions or if you have clarifications or whatever, let me know. And I have designed it in a manner in which we will cover all the different aspects of questionnaire design. So we know that survey research is extremely important in most of the social science disciplines. I mean, this is one figure that we got from one of these places, and it suggests that in economics, for example, almost 39.4% of the research is survey research. In sociology, almost 6 out of 10 research which is done is survey. In political science also, of course, in psychology and public opinion, and in our journalism and mass communication discipline also, we do a lot of survey. So this is something which is very important across disciplines. So I want to draw a distinction. If there is anything that you want as I go along, or if you think that I'm going too fast, or if my accent is not clear, let me know. I will try and repeat that, or I'll try and clarify that. So questionnaire refers to both these two different types of survey instruments. One which participants themselves fill up. So through Google form or through other techniques, we create those survey instruments, as we call them, and we give it to the participants and they themselves fill up. Another type is also known as an interview, is a schedule, for which the interviewer is just given the question. The people who are asked questions, they can't see what is written there. They're only asked. So there are basically these two types of survey instruments, and we refer to both these instruments as questionnaires. So one which people fill up themselves, another one which we give it to the interviewer, and based on those questions he asks people and then writes down their responses. So these are two types of survey instruments. We call them survey instruments because at the end we want to draw some conclusion from the questionnaire. So questionnaire is so important because it is the medium of communication between the researcher and the subject. So I am a researcher. I want to find out about what is the media habits of students of Polygon College. So I am the researcher and I want to find out from students what type of media do they use. Do they use social media more? Do they use television more, or do they read print newspapers or whatever? So if I want to find out all these things, I will create a questionnaire and send it either to the questions directly, or sometimes on my behalf, some field worker will go and ask those questions. So this questionnaire is the medium of communication between the researcher and the subject. Now, before I start, this is very important to know that if my questionnaire is wrong, because through the questionnaire I'm trying to measure people's attitudes, their opinions. We'll talk in details about all these things, about the difference between attitude and behavior and opinion and all that. But if the instrument itself is wrong, through which I'm trying to measure, then there will be a problem, or people will not provide me with the right answers, and that will give me some kind of a wrong impression about people. So if I phrase my questions poorly, or if I phrase it in a manner in which I'm not getting the correct response, then my research will be at stake. And as we all know that we are journalism and mass communication students, so we have to keep on asking questions at different times from different people. So it's important to know that we phrase these questions properly and we put them in the right order, because putting them in the wrong order is also something that might create problems. So first of all, and this goes not just for survey instruments, it is also this also holds good for most of the writing we do. It has to be simple. Now, this is what one of those researchers, Sheetsley, had to say about badly written questionnaires, and he has a reason for that also. He suggests a reason for that also. He says because questionnaires are usually written by educated persons who have a special interest in and understanding of the topic of their inquiry. So because they are educated people and because they are doing it from a different perspective, lot of their times the questions are overwritten, means they are writing more than they should be writing. Overcomplicated means it's not simple. It's so complicated that people can't understand what is the question. And it is also too demanding of the respondent. That means there's a lot of things that we expect the respondents to already know, or we think that we ask them and they will be able to provide those answers directly, because we assume too many things about the respondents, and that is a problem we will see. So that is why it's important to understand that simplicity is such an important thing for questionnaires and for regular writing also, because the idea is to express, or the idea is to get their views on that topic. The idea is not to confuse them or not to impress them with our language or with our education. So that's very important. We know about concepts of ethnography and anthropology and all that. So we have to regard, this is being compared to anthropology, for example, that when we approach an alien culture, or when we approach a culture which is about which we know very little, there I have to put away my background and establish frames of reference. Because for everything we have some established frame of reference, because we know that, okay, if the person lives in a village, he should behave like that, or the person lives in this part of the country, so he should. So all these stereotypes are bad for anthropology. Similarly, when we design questionnaires, we must make sure that our background, our understandings, our stereotypes and all that are there in the background. That should not undermine the questionnaire process. So now I'm going to talk about that when we design a survey. So I'm sure that many of you will be doing some surveys at certain times of points of time, because that is one way of understanding the opinion of the people. So if you want to find out whether people want to see a particular program, or they want to do a particular course, or what are the things that they like in online classes, what are the things they do not like in online classes, what are the things they like in expert lectures, and so on and so forth, we design a survey. So firstly, what we do is we choose a particular topic. That what is the topic that we will be working on? So that is important. The choice of the topic will determine everything. So before we start, we must know what is the topic that we are surveying, or about which we want to know. And after we choose that topic, we have to find out what are the important variables. Variables means what are the things that change. So for example, if my topic is media habits of the students of Polygon College, then my variables would be the time spent on watching television, the time spent on internet, the time spent on WhatsApp, the time spent on so many other things. So we also have to find out that what are the variables in that particular survey, because those variables will determine what will be my question. So my questions will depend on these variables. So I should know what are the variables. I'm asking questions because I want to know about these variables. So asking questions means I'm operationalizing these variables. So we choose a topic, we decide what are the variables, and we will find out how do we find out about those variables. Then we test the quality of the questionnaire, and these are all the things that I will talk in details about in today's presentation. And then we have the final questionnaire. So these are the 5 stages of designing a survey, as I said. So we choose the topic, we go to the variables, then we operationalize those variables, then we test the quality of questionnaire, and finally we have the questionnaire. We will also have to find out that who are the people that I will talk to. So for example, if there are 100 people, do I talk to all the 100 people, or do I do some sampling out of that? Or for example, I want to talk to people, for example, in the Tinkune area of Kathmandu. So I will just, maybe there are 1,000 people, but I want to survey only 100 people. So I will have to have a sample design. In today's discussion, I'm not going to talk about sampling, but of course you will know about sampling also in some other class. One very important thing to know is that every question you ask should be related to the survey's objectives. when we are doing a survey, we want to find out certain answers to certain questions. So every question you ask should be related to your survey's objective. So we have to confirm that the question addresses the research objectives. Because if we have written a question which is not related to the objectives, then we will have to ask yourself that what do we do with that question? We are asking questions because we want people's opinions. And those opinions must be related to my objectives. I'm doing a survey because I want to find out something. So does that question help me in finding out that particular thing? If it does not help me in finding that thing, then that is not good for the questionnaire. Then I'll have to probably avoid that, or I'll have to think of using that questionnaire way. So we have to understand the context of the questions. So one of the things that we want to find out is the behavior of the people. That what do people do? So it's like asking them that what do you do at that point of time. So that question could be a behavior question. So I'm just trying to tell you what are the 5 or 6 different types of questions we can ask. One is the behavior question, where we ask people that what do you do after watching television, or what do you do after you see a message on WhatsApp, do you cross-check it or not, or so on and so forth. So one of the questions we ask is the behavior question. Another question is the belief question. And as you can understand, behavior question will be different from the belief question. In the belief question, we ask people what is true, or what do they think is true. Do you believe that COVID-19 will go away in whatever? Do you believe that vaccines are good for us? Of course, vaccines are good for everybody. I mean, that's very important. So these are belief questions. Or do you believe that our country is doing better than it did, and so on and so forth. So this belief is very contextual. So it depends on everybody. It depends on different people. So we have the behavior questions and we have the belief questions. We also have the knowledge question. So this is about establishing the accuracy of the belief. So whatever they believe, do they have evidence for that? So these are knowledge questions. So we have to frame knowledge questions like that, or at least we should know that these are the options. So we could be asking about people's behaviors, we could be asking about their beliefs, we could be asking them how much knowledge they have about that particular thing. So it could be about the knowledge of using different aspects of a particular software, or it could be knowledge about an event, it could be knowledge about climate change, for example, or do they know, whether this rise in ocean temperature causes more snowfall in certain areas. So this is just establishing their knowledge. Then we ask them attitude questions. What do they think is desirable? Do you think that it should be done like that, or this should not be done like that? So again, that's a very important kind of a question to ask. We also have what is known as attribute question. So it could be about what is your education, what is your family income, do you own a bicycle or not, and do you have a phone, do you have a feature phone, do you have a smartphone, or any kind of an attribute. So about their characteristics, how many brothers or sisters you have, or what's your height, or all these kind of things. So of course these have to be related to the research questions, as I said. So we can have these 5 types of questions in a particular questionnaire. If you have any questions as I go along, please let me know, and I would love to address those questions. So there are different ways of questions. So we can just ask it can be interrogative questions where we use one of those who, what, when, where, or whatever. We can have instructions that fill up the following whatever, or it could be just a declarative sentence. So we'll just provide you with details about all that. This is just suggesting that there are so many options in which we can frame a question. Now we come to a very important part of questionnaire. And this is what all researchers and all students should know, that we have at least two different types of questions. One is open-ended and the other is closed-ended. In closed-ended questions or in closed questions, we give them options that which according to you are good movies out of that. So we give them those options, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This can be a drop down or this can be a list or this can be anything. So the options are already given to them, that given a chance, which of the following countries would you like to visit? Given a chance, what would you like to do in journalism? So we are giving them options. So when you give them options, they cannot think on their own. You are trying to, so both these things have their benefits. In open-ended questions, we do not give their choice. We just ask them that which is your favorite movie. So they will just write down or they will just type down. So there are many advantages and disadvantages of both closed and open-ended questions. In closed-ended questions, I'm only giving them a particular range of choices. And this is easy for them to answer. And as a researcher, it is easy for me to analyze also, because they are all coded and I can easily organize. I give them 5 choices or 10 choices and they are just supposed to choose from them. But when it is an open-ended question, anybody can write down anything. So this is a text that they're writing, or it could be a number or anything that they're writing. But analysis of that will be difficult. And at times people, and you can understand that answering an open-ended question means people have to spend more effort. In a closed-ended question, when I am giving them the choices, they don't have to make any effort. It's that they either tick it or click it or whatever. But there they have to write down or they have to speak out about their opinion and all. So many people might not be very comfortable with open-ended questions. But at the same time, there is an advantage also, because when we give them the choices, we are either restricting them or we are pushing them in a particular direction. In open-ended, it's free. They are free to make their choices. So there could be an open-ended question and there could be a closed-ended questions. I'm not talking about pre-coded here because I don't want to confuse you with too many things right at the beginning. So one is the open-ended question and the second is the closed-ended question. I'm sure you might have come across these questions. In closed questions, we do not give them an open choice. We give them choices that, okay, these are the drop-down, which area do you belong to? So we just give them choices. They're not supposed to answer on their own. In open-ended, there are no choices. They answer on their own. I hope this is clear to you, because this is important, that in every questionnaire, we have to decide that this question should be open-ended or this should be closed-ended. And that's a very important, so you should have reasons that why do we have a closed-ended question or why do we have an open-ended question. So this is one of the examples of the week, and this is about how not to write a questionnaire, because this is a very confusing thing. So I'm just reading out this wording. So how many days of the week do you usually watch television? I mean weekdays and Saturdays and Sundays, of course, and daytime viewing as well as evening viewing. So as you can see, they are saying so many things in that same question. And as we see later on that many people could not understand it. 14 of the 59 people who were asked this question failed to interpret this question to mention a numerical answer, because the question is simple: how many days of the week you watch television? Instead of saying that, you are over clarifying it, and that is a problem. So we will see that these wordings are so very important. So I will go into specifics also, but before I carry on, this is what I wanted to suggest, that if the wording is very wrong, large majority of the people did not understand that what do they mean by days of the week, and they did not understand that what does you mean here, and so many other things. So a lot of the things that we assume people would know, or I think that I can understand, but whether the other person is understanding or not is a very important thing. And at times it is also known as the knowledge curse, and we should all be aware of that. And what it means is that I can understand and I'm assuming everybody else will also understand. or I know the reasons why certain things are happening, and I'm assuming everybody else also knows why it is happening. It might not be true. Everybody's frame of experience might not be the same as mine, and that is why when we assume that people would know because I know, is not the right thing to do. So we have to keep on understanding whether people do have an idea about all these things or not. And again, this is an important topic, and this is something that you will keep revisiting while you do your research. And this is the question of validity. So validity means that whether the question is measuring what it is supposed to measure. Say, for example, I am asking a question about how much time you spend on television. So it is just a straightforward question about the time that they are spending on television. But if I take it to mean that okay, this is the time where they are this is the time that they're wasting, then that is probably not the right thing to do, because the question does not measure whether this is a wastage of time or not. Many people can use television for educational purposes also. So you must be very clear about what the question is asking and what you think it is measuring. So it is a very, very important thing to understand. And that is the meaning of validity. So if I'm asking about people about their family income, so this is only about their family income. Or if I ask people about whether they have a laptop or not, that does not mean that they have to be necessarily rich. So it is just a question about whether they have a laptop or they do not have a laptop. I cannot extrapolate it to mean that everybody who has a laptop has to be a rich person. So this is very important, that the question should measure what they are supposed to measure. And the second is about reliability. And this is again a very important thing, and this also applies from the field of science. And it means that if the same question, the same person will be answering in a similar way. I mean, if I ask him in different times, he should not answer in different ways. So that is the question of reliability. So if I measure 1 kg of mangoes in one place, another place I go, it should also be always 1 kg. It will not suddenly become 500 grams. So similarly, in social science, it's an important thing that our questions should elicit consistent answers. If they do not elicit consistent answers, then that is the problem. So we will see those kind of things. And why does it happen? And that's a very important thing, because people do not always give correct responses. And I'm sure you might have realized that the world over, many opinion polls, I'm sure you know about opinion polls. Do you? Can anyone respond whether you have heard of opinion polls or not? So students, can they mute? No, they're all muted, right?
They can unmute. So anyone who wants to share about opinion polls?
Yes, sir. We had opinion poll during our television programs. We usually doing that.
Very good. So we understand that very often these opinion polls do not match with the reality. I remember many of the opinion polls we have here during elections, and when the results come out, the opinion polls do not match with the election results, and there are certain reasons for that. So that is why this question of validity is very, very important. So let me thank you very much for your response. So
the example, the recent example you have seen in Bengal election, right, sir?
Absolutely. And I'm in Bengal right now, so I stay in Bengal. That is why.
So the recent opinion poll has totally gone wrong way this time by all the televisions which they have done.
Yes, and very nice. So you have full knowledge of what is happening and all that. So nice to know. Thank you very much for your response. So there are reasons why these polls go wrong, or why people do not respond correctly to all the questions. And I'm going to, ma'am, is there anyone else? Avilasha, ma'am?
Anyone else wants to share their views about opinion polls?
Okay, we'll come later. No
Yeah,
problem.
any questions so far? You can unmute yourself and ask if you have any questions, or we can take questions at
Okay,
last
okay,
if
okay.
we
Yeah, we'll take that. No problem, ma'am. Right. One is the question of social desirability. Very often, when we ask people questions, people try and give the most socially desirable answer. Say, for example, if I'm doing a survey of my students, and if I ask them whether they smoke or not, nobody is going to accept that they smoke because they know that this is not socially desirable. So they will not give me the correct answer. They will give me the answer which they think is the socially desirable. So many respondents feel the pressure to respond in socially desirable ways. That is why many of these opinion polls, or that is why many of these questionnaires, they do not give the right results. Another thing is about inaccurate estimation. Very often we ask people to make estimations. So how much time do you spend on television per week? So per week estimation is very difficult for them. We are assuming that they can, correctly or accurately estimate the information, but they cannot. So many of those estimates are accurate. If you ask them that how many seats do you think that your party will win, so their estimations can be inaccurate also. Often these people do not have any attitude on that particular thing, or they do not have any opinion about that. So we ask them, and they do not have opinions. We accept that they have opinions. So that is not true. For example, I mean, there are a lot of stereotypes. For example, I have friends in Jamaica, that's in the West Indies. And I assume that they must all be knowing about football and cricket and athletics, but that is not true. There are so many people who have absolutely no idea about the sporting things. But we think that Jamaica means everybody will be playing cricket or football or athletics or whatever. So it might not be true. So these are three reasons why a lot of these things, because if you ask them questions and they think that, okay, this person seems to belong to that particular party, so I'll tell him that I'll vote for this party. So people do not give very honest answer at times because they think that it might not be socially desirable. And for that, you must have different ways of asking that question so that this problem of validity is taken care of. So one thing that we have to do is to provide very clear instructions. We have to use everyday language which we use every day. It should not be academic language. We should write in complete sentences so people understand the total context of it. So it should not be just label questions, not just single word questions or things like that. And then very, very important to ask one question at a time. I will talk about double-barreled questions here, because if you ask two questions in the same question, then there's a problem. So that's very important. Be consistent with your use of response options. I'll just talk about response options. So it could be ticking, it could be clicking or whatever. So every question, if you change those response options, then there will be a problem. You have to use consistent wording and phrases throughout the question. And as I just told you that we can talk about questionnaires as interview schedule. So that is just one example. Or we could be talking of television just as TV. So if I'm using the word TV, then the word TV should be used throughout. So it's not that in certain places I use the television and then I use TV, or in some other places I use the broadcaster or things like that. If you use inconsistent wording, then the people might get confused. And if they get confused and provide you with the wrong answers, or they provide you with the answers which is not honest or not correct, then your research will be at stake. So that's why I'm repeating, using consistent wording and phrases throughout. Leading questions. Now that is a very, very important thing. And this is again a problem that a lot of television channels also have. So we ask them, so don't you think that the Prime Minister is doing very good? So we are leading them. We are telling them that, okay, Prime Minister is doing good, so you also, try and answer that. So these are very important things. We should not be giving them leading questions. So don't you think that the teacher is so good? So we are telling them, okay, the teacher is good, so please tell yes. So this is like, we are not giving them the option. We are trying to lead them. So good researchers can watch out where are leading questions, and they would know that that will not provide you with the right answers. So if you ask them, don't you think that this party is going to win? So we are giving them, already we are trying to lead them to the answer that, okay, we think that this party might win. So these are our problems. Another problem is, as I said, is of double-barreled question, where the same question is having two questions inside it. So there are many options that you can understand, that we are not asking one question, but two questions in the same question, and that is a problem. Double negative. So don't you think we should not be going there? So these are double negative means it actually means positive. So the human mind takes a lot of effort to recognize the double negatives and make sense of that. That is why double negatives should be avoided. Implicit negative, that it implies something is negative. So we'll give you an example. Over long lists. I mean, if you're giving them those drop-down options, and there are 20, 30 options, so everybody is not going to read all those options. So this is about the closed-ended question. So the list should be manageable. Otherwise, people would not want to spend too much time or too much cognitive energy in trying to make sense of those lists. So I'm starting off with a small checklist for questions. First, is the language simple? So this is the question that you should be asking as a questionnaire designer. Is the language simple? Can the question be shortened? Can I make it shorter? Is the question double-barreled? If it is double-barreled, that means they're asking two things in the same question, then it's better to split it down into two questions. Question leading. Are you leading them to an answer? Question negative. So as I said, people have a lot of have to spend a lot of effort in understanding what is negative. So good coaches, they never talk in negatives, because say for example, we play a lot of cricket in India. I'm sure there also many of you know about cricket. So for example, people have to catch a ball. So if the coach tells that, okay, don't drop the ball, so that is a negative thing. If you say people don't do it, then they get confused, so they might drop it. So this we tell them in positive things, catch the ball. So we should say, please hold on tight. If you ask them don't fall, then the mind gets confused. So that negative thing is a toxic vocabulary. So we must try and avoid those negative questions. Is the respondent likely to have the necessary knowledge? We assume that he knows about that particular thing. So whether he has the necessary knowledge or not. Will the words have the same meaning for everyone? So does it mean the same thing for everyone, or different people might infer it differently? So that's another important thing to remember. Is there a prestige bias? And that is also a very important thing. We ask questions and people will try and answer which puts them in a better light. So that is known as a prestige bias. So if I don't answer it well, then I might appear smaller. So let's answer it that way. So that is a bias. Is the question ambiguous? Means it's not clear. Is the question too precise? Too precise is also something where people can't think, or they don't have to make some opinion about. So that is also not something which is very clear. So the frame of reference, whether that is clear, does it create opinion? And that is a thing that we have to watch out for. That are we creating opinion? No, we have to ask people. Through the question, I should not create opinions. Is personal or impersonal wording preferable? So whether I should refer to the person or whether it should be an indirect question. Is the question wording unnecessarily detailed or objectionable? It is, as I showed you one of the examples where and this is what comes from many people who have a law background. They try to unnecessarily provide greater details than is necessary. Or is there anything objectionable that people might feel bad about? Does the question have dangling alternatives? I don't want to get into all those grammar, but there is one thing where you have dangling alternatives and the subject is not very clear. So whether that is there. So does the question have gratuitous qualifiers? Do you think that education should be privatized even if it leads to a decline in standards? So this, even if it leads to a decline in standards, is a qualifier. We should not give those qualifiers, because that again might lead to an impression. So you are suggesting that there might be a decline in standard, and why do you say that? Is the question a dead giveaway? That is always one kind of answer. So if there is no variability in the answers, then probably that's not a good question. Now, how do we rank those questions? So very often we have those ranking questions, because one of the things that we deal with is ranking. We ask people to rank certain things, and these are these variables provide me with an ordinal measurement. So what are the things we rank? We will be ranking a product characteristics. So among the five, which rank them on their strength. So the strongest first, and so on and so forth. Rank them on their consistency, on the which the most consistent you rank highest, and then the lowest. And sweetness, all those kind of things. So it could be a product characteristic. It could be frequency of use. So which are the most used? So out of these five health drinks, which are the ones that you use most, and the next most used, or whatever. So there you might ask people to rank. Recency of use. That means among these five, which are the ones that you have most recently used or most recently watched. So rank them according to the recency of use. Perceived price. So perceived means what do you perceive to be the most expensive. So you rank things from most expensive to least expensive. And also you rank things on ease of comprehension. So which one is the easiest to understand and which one is the most difficult to understand. So you could be ranking things on their characteristic, you can be ranking things on their frequency, on their recency, on their perceived price, and on their ease of comprehension. So these are some of the ranking questions that we have. So this is one of the things that I have taken from one of the questions, and this is what a ranking question looks like. So this is what we put on the questionnaire. Listed below is a set of issues that can influence the way in which people decide to vote in general elections. Please rank each of these issues to indicate how important they are to you when you decide to vote. So it is to you, not what other people think important, what you think important. So these are all these options: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Which one do you consider to be the most important? So if you think that policies to reduce unemployment is 1, then put 1 there. So this order is very important, because when you put something, so you should put it haphazardly, so it does not look like whether you have already put things in order. So getting tough on crime could be 2, the improving health services could be 3, or in this COVID environment, most people might say that improving health services is 1. So we place these numbers on the boxes, but we have to also tell them that do not place the same number in more than one box. For example, do not write 1 in 2 boxes. So when you're doing it automatically, Google form will ensure that you do not write the same number twice. But otherwise, if you're doing it manually, you'll have to take care of that. So this is one of the questions that we can put on the questionnaire. These are known as the ranking questions. So this will give me an output. This will tell me that 45% people think that improving health services is the most important issue in the elections. So that is why these ranking questions are important. We have these scales. So this could be a kind of a scale. So we have this card, or you can have that on a Google form also. Using this scale, please indicate how effective are the management and staff in seeming well organized and systematic in carrying out their work. So this could be on behalf of an organization. So we are giving them the scale, and this is always a balanced scale. On one side, it is highly effective and effective. On the middle, this is neither effective nor effective. So that's a neutral kind of a thing. And on the right side, not very effective, not at all effective. So we give them scales. So this is one of the ways of giving a question, or making the question look more interesting. So the problem with scale is that this order, people would keep on try and give those the same kind of order everywhere, or they would like to like to write more effective more often. So if you go to a hotel and people ask your feedback, most of the times you're like, okay, very good, very good. You don't want them to feel bad, or you won't want people to leave, people to lose their jobs and all. So you might be, this is one thing that one might be doing. And another thing is central tendency, that, okay, we want to give most of people average things. Okay, so when people, at times, certain teachers, they do not have time and they have to correct and all, giving them average marks doesn't happen now. Used to happen maybe 20 years ago. So that central tendency is another problem. And there is pattern answering. Many people just, without reading, they just answer in pattern. Okay, A, B, C, B, like that kind of a pattern. They will keep on ordering. So this is a problem with scales. So these are, some of the semantic scales we are suggesting, and that's very, very important. So one of the scales that we are having is semantic. So there are pair of statements. So we give them two statements. So each one may or may not apply to the advertisement you have just seen. Please read each pair and indicate which of the statements you agree applies to the ad by ticking one box for each pair of statements. For example, if you think that the advertisement was mundane, you tick closer to mundane. So if you say that this is mundane and this is fascinating. So I'm giving them two semantic ideas. This can be about advertisements, for example. So you ask them about, and as you can understand that the order is reversed at particular times. So here on the left you are writing boring. Boring means you don't want it to be boring, of course. And on the right we are having interesting. But in the second question, on the left is important and on the right is unimportant. So at times we have to change this order so that people do not answer in a pattern, or they do not have all the problems that I spoke of in the last slide about the order effect, about equivalence, about central tendency, about pattern answering. So whether you find boring, so if it is boring, they will click something closer to boring. If it is interesting, they will click something closer to interesting. So as you can understand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is always balanced, because if somebody likes, clicks here, that means it's neither boring nor interesting. That means it's neither important nor unimportant. That means it's neither relevant or irrelevant. That means it's neither exciting nor unexciting. So these are some of the options that I, as a researcher, want to find out. And that is why I'm giving them options. So you can have any of the options you want to find out. So these are some of the options which I think are important. So I will give these questions on a semantic differential scale, and people are just supposed to click. So it's a Google form, then the click happens automatically and you get the result on your sheet. So here you can choose more than one, and that is what is known as the checklist format, and that is also a very, very important format where we want people to provide more than one answer. So listed before are some adjectives, some of which are favorable, some of which are unfavorable, some of them are neither. So please tick the boxes beside the characteristics that best describe you as a person. Most people choose 3 or 4, but you may choose more or fewer if you want. So they're telling them, okay, so you can choose 3 or 4, but you're not giving you options. You're not asking you to choose only 3 or 4. You're telling you indirectly, okay, most people choose 3 or 4. You may choose more or fewer you want. So whether you consider yourself ambitious, whether you consider yourself good looking, whether you consider yourself moody, whether you think yourself poised or obliging or happy or whatever, so just choose. So this is a checklist format where you can check more than one answer. At times we have to give ranges. So say for example, whether it is about age, so whether you are from 15 to 30, 30 to 31 to 45. So when we give ranges, all the ranges should be of similar width. And also we should consider the range so that the most popular ones are in the middle. So if I'm talking about students, then I'll put someone maybe 10 to 15, 15 to all those earlier, so that the popular range will be in the middle and the higher ones and the lower ones will be at the two ends. So that is what we'll do in ranges. It could be about age, it could be about income, it could be about time spent on WhatsApp or those kind of things. So I spoke of some scales. So there is that paired comparison. We can also have pictorial scales. We can have graphic scales. We can have numeric scales where we provide numbers on both sides and we ask them to choose. And so we can have all these kind of scales. One of the things that we do in questionnaires is we have a funneling sequence. We ask people, whether they watch television or not. And then in the next question, we tell them, if you watch television, answer the following. Otherwise, go to question number 7. So this way, you make a respondent from general to a more specific one. So that is one kind. And in funneling, what we do is that we ask them that, do you watch entertainment programs? Okay, so this is a general program. In the entertainment programs, do you like to watch comedy or adventure or thrill or whatever? And in comedy, do you like it like, you watch this kind of comedy or whatever? So we go from general to specific. That way, people also find it natural and they would want to answer also in that particular way. And that answer is related to the one which goes on earlier. So we follow that particular order. So it's very, very important. Just because you ask one question now and then you ask the second question, many people will think that the second question is related to the first one. So just by answering a preceding question or just by putting a preceding question, you might make people think very differently about the question which follows. So it's very important to put things in perspective. So if you ask, someone about something and immediately you ask another question, people still think whether this is related to the earlier question or not. So now I'm trying to provide you with what are the questions that you ask first and what are the questions you ask later. And as any good interviewer would tell you, that you ask questions which make people feel better. Ask questions, first of all, which make them feel comfortable. A lot of good interviewers, they, try and make the interviewer happy. So you are one of the most senior most politicians in the country. You are one of the most respected academicians in the country, or things like that. So they feel comfortable or they enjoy answering. So even in these questionnaires, we ask people the questions that they enjoy answering, because very often through questionnaires we learn so many things. So yeah, so commence with questions that residents will enjoy answering. So they should be easily answered questions. We ask factual questions initially about facts, about which people do not have to think. So what is your education qualification? Which part of the country do you live in? All those kind of things. Factual questions are clear. Many people do not want to start with demographic questions. Your age, your marital status and all those things, they should come at the last, because people are not very comfortable with answering these questions right at the beginning. So many questionnaires you might have come across where these demographic questions are used right at the beginning, but it's advisable not to have them right at the beginning. Ensure that the initial questions are relevant to the stated purpose of the survey. So you already are telling them that the survey is about that. So you must ensure that your questions are all related to what you've said is the purpose. If it is very different, then the person might think, oh my God, why is he asking me all that? I mean, this is not the purpose of the survey. So they might get irritated or confused or whatever. So it's not right. Go from the easy to more difficult questions. The more difficult questions will follow later on. Easy questions first. From concrete to abstract questions. So first, all the earlier questions will be about concrete details, about which, as I said earlier also, that factual questions are used initially. So we go from concrete questions to abstract questions. And open-ended questions should be kept to a minimum. I hope you remember, open-ended questions are where we do not give them options. So they should be a minimum, because there is a lot of effort that goes into open-ended questions. and they should be kept to a minimum, and if possible, they should be there at last. Group questions into sections. So questions must be similar questions. So similar questions must be together. This provides a better flow. And earlier also I spoke of funneling, so that is very, very important. Make use of filter questions to ensure that questions are relevant to respondents. So if you're asking a lot of questions about television habits and the respondent does not watch television, then these questions are useless to him. So before that, we'll be having a filter question so that they can answer the only those people will answer who watch television. So I just showed you a scale, and I told you that when using a series of positive and negative answers, we must mix them up at times so that people do not just keep answering without reading them. So maybe at one point, as I just showed you, at one time, most of the positive could be on the left side, but on the left side, at times, we must also keep some negative items so that people have to think. They do not just answer without reading the question. So when you're having a scale, it should not be just, positive on the left and negative on the right. It has to be mixed. Also, have a variety of question formats. Everything should not be of a similar type. A variety of the question marks makes the questionnaire more interesting. So that is also a very, very important thing to remember. So there are a lot of assumptions we make while we design these questionnaires. So one of the assumptions is that people would know that, or this is what they will answer or whatever. So we must have the correct impression about our respondents. We must have a particular ideal person. So even when you're, I'm sure many of you realize that when you're posting something on Facebook, for example, you have one or two friends in mind who you think will read and enjoy or like or not like that. So similarly, when we are providing these questionnaires, we must keep one or two ideal respondents in mind. So these are, and we do that even when we design our lessons. We think that okay, this is the average student and whether he or she will understand or not. So we must keep that in mind while providing that questionnaire or not. And it's very important to pre-test our questionnaire, because pre-test is very, very important. So say, for example, you have a particular sample. So I want to put a questionnaire to all my students in Polygon College. So I will just choose 5 or 10 students so that they can give me a feedback. So I make them go through the test so that I will know how much time is taken, which are the questions that which need to be corrected, whether similar students will be able to answer that or not. So that is why we always have to go through a pre-test. It's not that we design the questionnaire and then we roll out for everyone to answer. We have to go through a pre-test before that. So what do we have to find out in pre-test? These are the things. Have you been understanding so far? Any question? Okay. So first of all, whether there is enough variation. So through those pre-tests, as I told you, is just a very small section of the sample that I want to survey. So whether there is variation in the answers at this small section. So I'm just talking about pre-test. That before finalizing the questionnaire, I go through a pre-test, and this is what I want to find out. Whether the meaning is clear to everybody, whether they find it difficult or not, whether they find it interesting and they pay attention to the questions, whether the sections that I have divided, that this is how the questionnaire will flow, whether those sections are natural or not, the order of the questions, whether they are correct or whether anything needs to be changed there. Whether people answer in particular patterns. So if they're answering in patterns, I'll have to change those patterns. How much time do they take to answer the questionnaire and a particular question? So that is also something that I want to find out during the pre-test time. And again, very important, again, their interest and their attention. So all these things are important in the pre-test process. So this is again, we do that, small pilot test before, after the pre-test, or that can be part of the pre-test also. So we want to find out whether all people give similar answers, whether the meaning remains same, whether two questions virtually mean the same thing. So when we do some correlation and we find that two questions measure virtually the same thing, then we'll just need one of them. We don't need both of them. So if there is a scalar index, whether people answer it that way, and we get the response that we want to find out. So these are the questions that we ask in pre-test, where we ask all the same things that I told you in our earlier ones. That are there any questions you were not sure to answer? Were you not sure to answer about this question? So these are the questions I ask my pre-test people. When I use the term this, whatever it could be the term, when I use the term acquiescence, what do you think I meant by that? When I ask the question about the quality of neighborhood, what sort of things did you consider? So I'm just trying to streamline my questionnaire so that all the problems that could be there in future, they can be taken care of. We must be very, very careful about these sensitive questions about people's racial origins, better avoided, about people's political opinions. So you must ask that very, very sensitively, because people might have something, people might feel very strongly, especially young people, they have very strong political opinions. So if you give them something away from that, they might not feel good about that. About religious or similar beliefs. So when you ask questions about people's religious beliefs, you must be very sensitive about those questions, because if it is culturally insensitive, then there might be a problem. Anything that might harm people mentally or physically, any question that, many of these things, they have to go through a review board, and any such question will have to be removed. Or asking people about their implication in criminal activities or those kind of things. So these are the things that need to be avoided. This is what many surveyors do, and this is what students can do as well. That many of those questions are already published, so we can use those questions for our work, and we can consult that data so that it will save us a lot of time and effort, and we can localize it, and we can know what to have and what not to have. There is nothing wrong in that, and at times if you want to give credit, you can do that as well. So easy access is always there, because many people, they have to now provide this open data. So that's very, very important. So once again, the questionnaire design list. Number one, is the research question clear? That means what are the things that you want to find out? What content is each question designed to measure? So are you measuring an attitude or attribute or belief or behavior? I'm sure you remember that. I showed you right at the beginning that whether you're measuring behavior or knowledge or belief or attribute or attitude, you should know about that. So if you want to find out about beliefs, what do you want to know about that attitude or belief? So you want to know the direction, that is it in a particular direction? Are you talking about how extreme that belief or that attitude is, or how intense that is? So these are two different things. Question reliable, as I told you, that question, the thing about reliability and validity. Are they sensitive to variation? That means you get variability, because if you don't get variability, you will not get a good statistical output out of that. Whether you are likely to achieve a good response rate, you send out a questionnaire, you want most people to respond. If people are not responding, then that is not enough. Then that is not right for you. Is it having the same meaning for our respondents? Is it relevant to my research questions? That's very important. Is the specific wording suitable? What type of the response format? So do you want it as an open or a closed format? That is also something that you have to ask while you're designing questionnaires. What level do you want to measure? So you could be asking about just the categories or the ranking or the numerical values. So they are known as nominal, ordinal, and interval variables. Nominal variables, where we just ask them about categories. So which part of Kathmandu do you live in? So that could be a nominal variable. Or your gender and your language you speak in and all that. Ordinal, these are language. These are about rankings that I just spoke about. Interval, they are about numbers. So how many hours do you do that, or what is your age or income, or all those things. They are interval questions. For closed questions, are you providing ratings or scores or ranking? I'm sure you remember the closed question where we provide them the options. Are you providing them a checklist, or if there are non-committal responses, what will you do? So this is an option that we'll have to decide later on, because many of the questions, they are either neutral, or whether I'm going to provide a don't know option. So many questions, they have a don't know option. Many people do not want to keep a don't know, because if too many people respond with don't know, that is not a good thing. Are the response categories exhaustive and inclusive? Whether when you give them categories in these closed-ended questions, are they exhaustive? Means it covers everything, and they're inclusive. That means it includes almost everything. Is it balanced? Are clear indications provided throughout the questionnaire? How will they indicate their responses? So if it is a printed thing, is there sufficient space for them to answer? Are there any other skips and they're clear to follow? Does the question conform to the question order? If there is coding, how do you do that? Because at the end you will have to do coding. So certain responses you code as 1, certain as 2, certain as 3, certain as 4, and so on. Will pilot testing be used? What type of pilot testing will be used? That means declared. You tell them that this is pilot testing. In certain places we don't tell them. In certain places we tell them that this is a pilot test. So when you tell them that it's a pilot test means you're just giving it out to fewer people. Do the questions work? And then you should also be aware of the measurement error. So when you're talking to people over the phone, then everybody should be spoken over the phone, because if you talk to some people over the phone and some people directly, then there is a measurement error. At times, interviewer characteristics are also important. So people might respond differently to older people. People might respond differently to people of different race, different gender, and so on and so forth. So all the respondents, means all the questionnaires, especially when you are asking them direct questions, you should make sure that they have a similar kind of response. That means similar kind of people are asking them. So interviewers should always probe answers in a neutral way. Otherwise, there will be a measurement error. So this is the communication. The design and the layout is very, very important. It's important to tell them why you're doing the survey. You have to tell them how much time they might be needed. And most importantly, you have to tell them that whatever they're responding will remain confidential and anonymous. And if you have a logo, you use the logo because it builds the trust and credibility. And thank them in advance, because it's always important to be nice to people. So that's all. I complete my presentation here.
Thank you so much.
Sir.
Yes, please tell me.
Very short question I have. Very
short
question.
Yeah.
I am Hikmat Rahul from Dangadi. I live in Dangadi.
Yes, sir.
And we discussed about the survey, and we got a lot of knowledge from you too. But in my mind, very short questions. Sometimes survey will not be correct because there is always the risk of getting wrong answer. People can tell lie. Respondents may not provide accurate data sometimes. Such a situation, how it can be the real picture of the problem, how it can be the complete research.
Thank you so much for the question. And the first part is to realize as researchers that there might be these biases that I spoke about, the desirability bias and the prestige bias and all those biases. And to make sure that when I'm writing those questions, those biases are taken care of. But you are so right that even after that, that people might not respond to it in a correct manner. And that is why often, we follow up with maybe a follow-up question just to find out whether the earlier answer was correct or not. So first of all, I must know that what I'm trying to find out. So, for example, if you want to find out whether the people have, voted for the ruling party or not, so you ask them that which party do you think is doing well, and then you ask other questions where you get their attitude about certain policies of the ruling party. that, okay, do you think that this policy is good? Do you think this policy is good? Do you think this policy is good? So we are trying to, provide them with other sort of indirect ways of trying to find out that they are saying that they're supporting this party or they will vote for this party, but they do not agree with any of their policies. So we have these, questions to kind of relate to and to probe deeper. So first of all, to find out, to know, Hikmat ji, whether those problems are there, and then to provide those additional questions. At times we might have to do the research maybe again, but this is important. First of all, while I'm writing down and making sure that I have as honest a thing as possible, and then having certain additional questions to find out about my variables, because at the end I want to find out about certain variables and whether I'm doing justice to those variables or not. So I might need to pose additional questions. So they might not know, because if they know that I'm asking them about that, then that will be a problem. That is why we have the pilot test and the pre-test to know that. But even after that, there might be certain problems. That is why we'll see that statistically, and we'll find out whether there is a thing that can be, because if it is not normal, then there are statistical ways of looking at it also. Thank you so much for the question. This is so very nice.
Thank you, Hikmatji. Any one else wants to ask a question regarding validity or regarding the checklist that you need to prepare before building a questionnaire? नेपालीमा सोध्नु भए पनि हुन्छ. यहाँलाई केही प्रश्न छ, क्वेसनर कसरी बनाउने, I'll translate it. दुईटै ल्याङ्ग्वेज युज गर्न मिल्छ. सो नेपालीमा सोध्न मन छ भने नेपालीमा सोध्नु भए पनि हुन्छ.
Come on, guys.
So if no one is asking, let me take this opportunity to ask a question. So how effective are these structure for qualitative research? And what's the difference, like when we structure a questionnaire for a quantitative and a qualitative research for interviews, how effective are these tools and the validity and reliability that we discussed?
Thank you so much for the question. And I don't know whether the chat box is on. What I'll do is, Abiral knows about that. So I have a YouTube channel where I have spoken about research methodology. So I'm just sharing the link to the channel, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So this is for anyone who would want to find out about that. Thank you, ma'am, for this so very relevant question. Now, why I'm talking about research methodology is very, very important. That in social science, there are basically three research philosophies. One is positivism, which is very similar to what we do in basic sciences, where we think that there is a reality and we just have to find out about that reality. So science has all those instruments to measure, all those things. In social science, our instrument is this particular questionnaire. So that is for a positivist science. So that it has a very different epistemology. It has a very different ontology. What you are suggesting is what is known as interpretative social science. So there we are more interested in a qualitative approach. There we are more interested about people's own experiences in their particular setting. So when we are doing qualitative research, there will be a lot more probing questions where we give people the chance to talk about their own experiences. So that qualitative research is more thick in description. It is very contextual, because their reality might be different for different people. And in this particular channel that I've just shared, in my last video, I speak about these three things. I speak about what is positivity. I've also explained what is epistemology and what is ontology and all that, and also about what is critical social science. So there is one kind of social science where we work more as activists, and we suggest why certain things are not right and what can be done to set those things right. So that is another way of doing research. So at times, you can have a mixture of both this, a survey and it partly answers Hikmatji's question also, that you can have surveys and also those qualitative studies where you go down and have those deep and probing questions and all, and then you triangulate and try and get the answers. So thank you very much, ma'am, for this wonderful question.
Thank you, Uma sir. So anyone else who has a question?
Sir, I have a question. I have a question.
Please,
Sir,
please.
namaste. I'm
Yes.
Anant Anurag, working for ABC Television here in Nepal. And my question is, you had just mentioned that the two questions are basically we have used in survey, open-ended and closed-ended. Basically, when we used in closed-ended, there is already some numerical or some already prefixed categories. But when we started talking about open-ended, there is no prefix, any numerical or something else. So when we get into the research, how we can manipulate the data and get into the realistic number when the response open ended question.
That's a brilliant question. Thank you so much. And this is very important. So, for example, if we have closed-ended questions, we have those numbers or we have those categories which we can code and we can infer and all. And open-ended questions take a lot more effort in trying to analyzing the content of the answer. So there we approach it differently. We content analyze those answers, or we try and put them into categories, or we try and make sense through a process known as content analysis. So there, there will be lots and lots of responses, and that is why this is slightly more, it takes a lot more cognitive effort, because we'll have to either put them into categories or make sense of them through themes or through structures, all that. So there is another process. So pardon me for again, repeating about that particular thing, but I have spoken about content analysis in that particular YouTube channel, where I talk about how to do content analysis. So we will have to, divide them into categories and themes and other structures, and that's how we make sense of open-ended questions. So that's more through, an analysis of the text that comes out. So that will give me with a richer descriptive kind of an option there. Thank you again for this wonderful question.
Thank you so much, Uma sir. Anyone else who has a question? Yeah, अरू कसैलाई question छ?
I think we have to sum up now.
Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful session. It was very informative. We got to understand how we can master this art of creating a questionnaire. For me, the takeaway from this session would be, first, we have to understand what research we are doing and what type of questions we want to ask. Like, if we are not clear about the questions that we want to ask, then we will not be able to create a questionnaire that is relevant for our respondent, and will only confuse them. So first thing is that we have to understand what we want to ask our respondents, and then create a questionnaire that is very precise and also that is very balanced, so that we can get the answers that are relevant for our research. Thank you so much for reiterating the importance of a structured questionnaire, and also giving our students tips and tricks on how they can build a questionnaire that is very relevant for their research. I hope that this session was very fruitful for all our students who are doing their research currently, to think about how they can make better questionnaires. So thank you so much for that wonderful session and your time. We really appreciate your presence here. So thank you so much. With this, I think we wrap up today's program. If you have any last words, Uma sir, you can just share that with our students.
Thank you, Abhilasha ji. Thank you, Hikmat ji, and thank you, my friend Abhiral. I mean, it was a wonderful experience, talking to my wonderful friends in Kathmandu, Nepal. And as I said, it's one of my favorite places. And in a post-COVID world, I would love to visit you all personally, and maybe talk more about other things. And this would be just a wonderful opportunity, and really, really nice. It was a very nice experience, and whenever you need me again, just let me know. I would love to be of any assistance. And very nice to see that you all are doing so well. So best wishes to everybody who's been there. And we are all students. We keep on learning all the time. So this is something that should be there. And once that is there, we will all flourish in whatever field we are in. So thank you once again for the invite. Thank you for having me. And let's hope that all of us stay happy and healthy, and let's keep on meeting, and let's have more and more collaborations. And once again, I invite you all to Kolkata. Please come down whenever you can. I would love to show you around. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Umar. We'll connect with you in near future for other sessions also. Keep connecting.
Thank you, Abhiralji. Thank you all, my friends. Thank you. Take care. Thank you. I take your leave now.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.